Thank you for joining us once again on an episode of the More People Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Fitzmaurice, joined today by Andy Bunker, Sales Director from Alton Garden Centre. Great to have you, Andy.
Thank you.
So I always feel that it's my duty when we have someone who's been in the industry for a long time to talk about the evolution of the sector and benefit from some of the history lessons and some of the wisdom, no pressure, but I'm going to call it wisdom, that you will have no doubt gleaned over your career in what's been an evolving space, ever changing, as most things are, to be fair, but garden centres in particular, for quite a while. How did you get into it? What's your background, Andy?
I did a few things. We used to have a guy come down from London selling strawberries, fresh strawberries and double cream at the front gate. And used to come down every year, and I used to earn a lot of money. And I mean, back in the day, the equivalent was probably 100 quid a day now at 16. And he used to come down every year, and then he'd leave his white box on the side, and come back the following year. Anyway, one year my dad said, "No, thanks a lot, mate. We've had enough, really. You know, we can't afford to do it." And then when he went, we set up ourselves. Typical of my dad. Where it all started for me was we set up a garden machinery department, specialist. And when we mean by specialist, we had in-house servicing and repairs, which is unheard of. You know, there's a lot of gardens that have got franchises or sold machinery. I'm talking about your fly mowers and your haters and your qualcast, but we were very unique in the fact that we had servicing and repairs. And me and this guy was going to set the business up. So my dad did a lovely deal with a school so I could leave early. After 3 or 4 years, I didn't think there was life after lawnmowers. I knew a lot of people. I used to go to quite a few places, but I took time. I was not mechanically minded, but I took time to understand the product. You know, one thing our business, like a lot of good garden centres, is that we've got good product knowledge, whatever category it is, good product knowledge. So I like selling. I have a lot of time for customers. I take a pride in, you know, little old ladies and things like that, just making sure they get what they want, you know, or what they should buy. I do get involved in a lot of things. I do a lot of RHS. I'm on the RHS judging committee for a lot of the trials. And I feel personally, as long as I feel valid, I'll do it. Because you give up your time. You don't get paid for any of this thing. So, and I've done a lot at Wisley and at Hyde Hall, which is just down the road. And I did a recent one, and the guy turned around to me, quite a senior guy in the RHS, said, "That's what we need. We need a retailer that actually can tell us." It's all very well doing that, but if it, you know, ultimately the plant's got to be a good garden plant for the customer, consumer. So that's quite good. And one of the other areas I really enjoy is I do talks
on plants.
On plants.
Yeah.
So I will, very basic, but I will pick up on the morning of I do 2 hours. I don't charge. That's the key factor. Some of these people go along with you thinking, right, I don't charge a penny, but I do it as a PR thing, if you like. But I will take 2 trolleys of plants to talk about. And then I'll take 2 trolleys along with special offer, so packs of pansies, £3 on the day sort of thing. That's, if you like, I'm hands-on still. I'll put stock out and everything else, but that's really where my life's progressed within the business.
We touched upon it before we started filming, but what's the role of peat-free and the agenda around peat-free? I know you've done some trials on peat-free. What have you found? What's the impact to cost, to how effective it is as a growing media and the perception of the public?
The problem is that the jury has been out for 2 years and it's going to be out for another 22 years. Every time you hear something, I was involved in a podcast, I think it was for Haymarket, which obviously owns some of the magazines. And again, somebody then turned around and said, I've started to play some of the podcasts, not all of them yet. And the person on before me just said, you know, they're talking about all the good bits, but not the bad bits. Now, okay, that's easy to say, that everything in life is going to have good and bad, but ultimately, for me, as a plants person, horticulturalist, is the inconsistency. You know, peat, you know, if plants grow in peat, that will survive, that will survive, that will survive. Whether that's 80% peat and that's 70%, it's a consistent medium, and there isn't a replacement yet that's consistent. I've been to probably 10 growers in the last year, probably more than that, big and small, and you know, you will go and see thriving plants, no problem, solve the problem with peat free, and then they'll show you the ones that are just about to go in the skip. I went many moons ago to a grower up in the north of the country, and I'm going back probably 20 years when that was very much in its infancy, and we were looking at 3 core plants, you know, lupin, a delphinium, a hollyhock, you know, communal garden perennials. And again, same thing. One was thriving, one was okay, the other one was in a skip. One of the trials, I was at Wisley with Violas, and there was a lady there, quite well to do with regards to RHS. She knew her stuff, and she mentioned, I won't mention the name of the company, but she mentioned the name of a product that was up there as one of the supposedly the best, and she literally slated it, you know, without me prompting anything. And I just think, you know, when you turn the corner, every corner you turn, green waste. Green waste is there's no consistency. It might come from there one week, it might come from there another week. The one I use a lot, although he just won an award, Coya, Steve Harper, won an award for it. I know Steve fairly well, but I look at it simplistically. How can something travelling X amount thousand miles, okay, carbon footprint might be zero and all those sort of things have been done, but surely that's not right. To come that distance. And in turn, I've been, you know, again, I do lots of things. I go to the Westland factory at Ellesmere Port, very state of the art, and you walk round the corner and there's a pile of coir which is 24/7 being watered. How can that be right? How can a product, before it's going to be used, or, you know, to be able to be used, consistently being watered? And they're saying now, you know, what you have got is you've actually got a higher salt content in the peat, in the plug, than they anticipated, and salt doesn't mix with a lot of plants. So poinsettias now, once they're breaking out of their peat plug and going into peat-free medium, you know, coir, let's say, that's having an adverse effect.
Which ultimately is what the customer experience is, you know. So if you're trying to drive greater penetration in the market or a greater uptick of new people buying plants, which might not be cheap. You know, they want to make sure they take it home, and we're all good at killing plants. You know, as a non-horty person, we're great at killing plants. But you take them home with the right growing medium, you want it to survive. Now, if you have got products coming from a waste product, you know, or a green product, but it's come from Sri Lanka, and there's all of those things to weigh in terms of the carbon footprint that's offset in different ways. But if they don't work and it's me that kills the plant, unbeknownst to me, it might be for the wrong reasons.
But often you won't blame the soil, you'll blame me.
Correct.
You'll blame the retailer.
And you won't buy it again.
That's right. That's right. And this is, I think it's particularly a British trait, isn't it? You go in a restaurant, 9 out of 10, but go in a restaurant, have a poor meal, they just don't go back either. They don't get hold of the maitre d' and go, hold on a minute, that steak wasn't cooked. You know, it's that, oh, I'll go to that one again. You know, average on now. But that's the thing with the plants, you say. And the problem is, again, it's throwing up, you know, we're opening bags of compost and it's like a white residue on the top. They're talking about bringing time dates on bags, use by date, sorry. So, you know, you're going to buy a bag of compost in February, March, and you've got to use by September or the following year. So all these things are thrown up all the time. And it's, yeah, as I say, every corner you turn, there's an obstacle or something that, you know, we did not say we didn't think of that, but it's something that is another problem we've got to cure. You know, the poinsettias is a good one. And at the moment, you know, not so much last year, but this year, I mean, my obviously poinsettias have got to be all English. If you're buying foreign, they've got a danger of Bemisia, which is tobacco whitefly, so they shouldn't be imported, so they're British. But because of the growing media, at the moment, it's not proven, but the specification of good poinsettia used to be, let's say, 25 centimetres plus. A lot of the stock now is 20 centimetres, and you go, is that because it's not getting the right nutrients within the compost it's being grown in? And the difficulty I've got is that we've got to sell higher than the multiples, obviously, you know, economies of scale. So my plant that used to come in like that, selling at say £6-7, now is like that. Well, then that's closer to the supermarket. They're selling at £3.50, regardless of what spec they are. You know, you're thinking, hold on a minute, you know, I've not got something big and blousy and I'm paying another couple of pounds for it. It's a similar product.
And it's difficult, I think, isn't it? Because the customer base at Christmas buying poinsettias, they don't know all of these nuances in the supply chain. It's an impulse purchase or a habit purchase for that time of year. And it either works really well and lives quite a while, or it doesn't, and you don't know what's gone into it, because the lay audience that aren't reading the trade presses that we read and having the types of conversations we're having, they have no idea, but they'll vote with their feet if it goes badly.
The interesting thing is, I heard, so on Monday, there was one of the politicians saying that, you know, should it not be that it's the customer's choice? And he was sort of obviously talking about the peat relevance, but, buying compost with peat in it as opposed to not. I think that's a really good stance. But if you generalise and say, let the customer make their own mind up, that can be quite dangerous. If you start broadening the
particularly
conversation.
if they're not equipped with the knowledge to make the decision in the first place, then they're not going to make an informed choice, are they, necessarily?
Ultimately, from where I stand, and I've spoken to the manufacturers about it and various other people, is that what you're probably going to end up with, or possibly end up with, is more bespoke varieties, which is what a grower's got. A grower has got a specific primrose and pansy. He's got a specific seasonal bedding, and he's got probably 5 or 6 flavours of compost in where he used to have one, 5 years ago. And that, I've said to them, because at the end of the day, the customer comes in, wants to buy multi-purpose because he's going to put a rose in a pot. He's going to put a couple of wallflowers out and a few pansies. So he wants one size fits all. Whereas ultimately that is going to be exactly that, pots particularly. And again, as you said, I've done a lot of trials. I did it for the compost companies about 2 or 3 years ago. I would say to a certain extent it was inconclusive, but the certain certain flavours of compost that were supposed to be the best, they just don't hold their moisture. And you've just got to treat it differently. That's the thing, and the major factor, again, which is very sort of simplistic, but fact is that when you look at something, you jump in your car and want to go to work, you look at the plant, think, it's a bit dry, I'll give that a soak tonight. And you give it a soak. And then a week later, you try and you break your wrist because it's taken on so much water. It develops a crust on the top and below it's sodden. And from experience, I grew 100 perennials. I live on a farm, so I do a lot of trialing, and I had 90% failure. And that is, again, I've got more technical people than me. It was, what do you know? Well, give it some slow release, give it increased drainage. And the other thing as well with watering is the best way to water generally with most things is from the bottom, like flood irrigation and things like that. That's proven to be more difficult. Again, we were at a grower recently, and they said, no, that used to work quite well with normal growing media they had, 5 years ago, whereas now that process doesn't work successfully enough for compost with peat in it, or 80%, without peat in it.
If we're looking for a positive lens with which to view this, It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity and still a need for quality people to understand how to fix these problems, because these problems are only going to evolve. They're not going away anytime soon, are they?
I mean, I think, at the end of the day, it's the education of customers, but again, with the situation we're getting into, with the amount of staff we've got available, we're the best one in the world. You put a sign up there saying to people, you need to do this, you need to do. They don't do it. If you can talk to them, that's the next best leveler. But at the end of the day, again, when I do these talks, I say to the people, don't go out and buy 6 bags. I say, try 1 bag of each. Try 1 bag of that, 1 bag of that. See how you get on, and then go out and buy 3 or 4 bags of the one you did well with. Which is gardening in general. Whatever you're doing, whether you're feeding your lawn or whatever, that's the way to do it. Trial and error.
Well, allegedly, Guy's a professional horticulturalist.
Is he right?
He'll be buying the poinsettias for the office at Christmas and responsible for making sure they live.
Right.
So ours will be great, I'm sure. But all your top tips, pass on to Guy.
Yeah.
Andy, it's been a pleasure.
Okay, great.